why your business isn't getting enough customers, and it's likely not what you think. That's the conversation today on the podcast. Let's jump in. Well, welcome to Business Growth Blueprint. I'm your host, BJ O'Neill, where we discuss all things profitability, leadership, and culture, specifically for faith-driven business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders. Now, this episode today is hyper practical, all right? I'm going to just give you almost like a miniature coaching session about some things related to if you feel like your business doesn't have and you're not getting enough customers, okay? Doesn't matter the kind of business that you have. You may have a service-based business. You might be in a restaurant. You may be in securities, whatever the case may be. This is a very normal thought. We hear this type of language and questions and comments all the time through our coaching team, our business coaching team, who works with business owners every single day. So here's a big, I'm going to say comment, concern would even also be applicable, that we hear a lot from business owners directly and leaders and CEOs, those things. That many business owners believe they have a marketing problem, but the reality is that's typically not the actual issue. Now, you may hear that as the person who's sweating, working hard, building the business, trying to sustain the business, and so on. You're like, dude, we do have a marketing problem. I hear you, but typically that's not the real root cause of why you may not have enough customers, okay? And this stems from a philosophy on improving profitability, okay? If all you were to do was to work on the front side of business growth, that means getting leads, that's the marketing part. Because here's the problem, and I'm going to say something controversial, but it is what it is. 90% or so of marketing and advertising is completely ineffective. Now, if you're spending good money on marketing and advertising right now, and that spear just kind of, wait, what? Well, here's a test. You can just do it on your own time. Drive up and down, I don't care what market you live in, I don't care where you live. Drive up and down the interstate. Look at the billboards, and you tell me how many of them were literally, first of all, you tell me how many of them you could actually read everything that's on the billboard, number one. Number two, could you even understand what they were saying, right? Same thing for, Facebook. You can do some research. You'll start like, what is it now? Well, the reality is most advertising and marketing is not that effective. Now, it might be a problem, and that problem needs to be worked on, but that's not really the problem on getting more customers. So I'm going to break this down. And by the way, when we look at the Bible as a guidance of the GPS, like how do you use biblical principles, you tie that into growth. One of those is Luke 16:10, and it's just essentially saying, when we are faithful in the little things, we are entrusted with more. And so I look at business growth that when we get into the weeds of the growth strategies, that's the little things. Because when you go myopic, one strategy at a time, now your focus is we're really zooming in and looking specific. That's usually not what a lot of people do. We want to broad brush big things because we think the bigger the thing that we're working on, the better the effect, and that's usually not really the case. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you down through a path of simple, practical things that you can go begin to work on in your business today. Not crazy stuff, not new stuff, by the way, foundational things that most businesses simply are not focused on. Here's the other reality. Approximately, we're going to call it 90%. You ready for this? You can go Google this if you don't, if what I'm about to say, you're like, what? If you don't believe me, you can go Google it. About 90% or so businesses never make it to $1 million a year in revenue. 90%. The reason why we think that that's not true is that when we do drive around or we watch TV, we go to sporting events, we see all the big names, right? The big names both nationally and the big names both locally, like your big car dealer, your big HVAC company, people that sponsor lots of things at the arenas and the stadiums and the billboards that dominate everywhere. But that's not the majority at all. The majority is the landscapers, the dentists, the dog groomers, the local pizzerias, right? Every market's got thousands and thousands and thousands of those. And this is the reason why we struggle, is that we don't apply legitimate, specific, foundational, routine strategies to the business. Here we go. I'm going to break this down. Number one, most businesses struggle with getting customers because they have a lack of a clear offer. Now, let's just use let's use a roofing company for a moment, because that's just an easy one. I use it all the time because it's easy. You may think, well, why do you need a clear offer for a roofing company? Well, if you're going to be competitive, why is your offer different, and why should I choose you over somebody else? That's the answer. So when we have this we do everything approach, in other words, bullet point, laundry list of all these different things, that's not unique, it's not clear, and that causes confusion. When there's confusion in the marketplace, you don't get customers, okay? And so there's no clear outcome, there's no clear result. So we don't have clarity on, what it is that we actually do, and then there's no clear outcome. And like, well, what are you going to solve? Here's an example. We help homeowners prevent $10,000 roof repairs. Now, if you're a roofing company, I'm not suggesting that you use that. I'm using it as the example, meaning I'm talking specifically who it's for, homeowners, and what it's actually going to do. And you say, yeah, but we do all these other things as well. So you get to that second tier later in the conversation with the potential customer. We don't want to lead with all these different things. We want to find one clear hook, one clear angle that stands out, that's different from everybody else that's doing something similar to what we do. Another example, we help busy families maintain a clean home weekly, okay? Again, you won't see that on the billboard, home cleaning services, this, all these different bullet points, versus we help busy families maintain a clean home weekly. So step number one, you've got a lack of a clear offer. We need to fix that. Problem number two, inconsistent follow-up. Everybody's always looking for the next customer, right? When we actually had a lot of conversations with lots of people over here, but they never turned into anything. And we make the claim, well, they weren't interested, and some of that may be true, but the real problem is there's no system to staying in contact and following up, because here's the reality. Many people just get busy. It's not that they're not interested. It's not that they didn't need what that you have to serve them with. It's that they got busy. And because you don't have a system and a process to follow up with them, they ended up going with somebody that's just right in front of them in the moment. So what do we do? Well, we got to fix it. That's what we got to do. And so the simplistic way for today's purpose is, at worst case, we need to build in, call it 5 to 10, 7 to 10, we'll call it even, follow-up touch points in different ways. Now, I could do an entire episode just on this one thing alone, but let's think about it for a moment. We've got the phone, calling, texting, emailing, snail mail. Like, if that's all you did, now we don't want to hammer people and berate them. That's not the goal. We want to follow up with value. And so one of the ways to do that, we'll continue to use our roofing company as an example, but it doesn't matter who it is. If we've had a conversation with that individual about whether it's repair, replace, or whatever. And so if I'm the roofing company, you're the customer, we're having a conversation, and you're just asking for general information, right? I'm going to ask your permission to follow up with you on the next. Hey, do you mind if I reach back out to you in a couple of days? I'm going to send you X, Y, and Z, but just want to make sure that you got what you need. Is that okay? So number one, I'm already asking for permission to follow up. When that begins to happen in rhythm, and you have a system to do it, you're going to dramatically improve the amount of customers just from that one strategy. And I'm willing to bet in coaching businesses for years and working with an entire coaching team who does this every day, there's a good likelihood your restaurant, your dog grooming business, your payroll services business, you probably don't have a follow-up system in place. A legitimate, structured, this is when we do it and how we do it. Here's the SOP. Anybody can walk in, sit down, and do it. That's what a system does. All right. Problem number 3, weak messaging. Okay. In other words, a little bit like the offer, but this is just about messaging in general. We are service driven in our messaging. In other words, we've been in business for 30 years. We're the oldest business in the county. And the list goes on. So going to say something contrary. This is like prepping you from what I'm about to say. So I'm not doing it for the sake of just offending you, but I am trying to wake you up. No one cares. Okay? They don't. We tell ourselves that people care. Oh, they want to trust, whatever. Sure, trust matters. But no, not in the beginning. What they want to know is, can you solve my problem? That's what they want to know. And by the way, you and me as consumers, we want the same thing. My wife and I, we talk about this all the time. We are, our home now, we're 13 years into it. Home improvement is a constant thing moving forward, right? Everything from all the things that need to be fixed to the things you want to add, change, and so on. And we see this every day just in working in our own little world with our own home, is that no one really talks about solving the problem. They just talk about the services that they provide, which are true, but they're not unique. They are overplayed. They're platitudinal at best, and they're not creative, or they don't speak to the problem. So how do we fix it? Always speak to the pain and the result that the end user wants, right? Here's a really quick example. It's a franchise. I use this example quite often, especially here on the podcast, called Wow Painting. All right? Here's their message. One day painting, no matter the size. So what's happening? Well, the biggest problem in painting is that the process can take 2-3 days or whatever. You got people in your house all the time. It's disruptive or whatever. They've solved that by saying, we're going to do it in one day, guaranteed, right? Super simple, clear. And guess what? There's thousands of painters between companies, subcontractors, your uncle, right? There's plenty of people who can paint, but only one says that. That's how you get clear and strong in your messaging, is that it speaks to the problem. And that's exactly what they were doing. So here's the process. Problem, promise, proof, process. All right, say it again. Problem, promise, proof, process. It's not enough. If you own that HVAC company and you got the van wrapped and all that kind of stuff, and you do all this, that, and the other, you have specials, this, whatever. If you're not clear with one big clear thing that you do, and it doesn't mean it's the only thing that you do, but that's what you become known for. And then as you build relationship with that consumer, that customer, that homeowner in that case, is that they're going to have the option to add more things to what they're doing. The next time that you see them, what they need, you are the go-to call, but you start with one clear value prop, right? If people don't understand the value of what you do, they simply will not buy. No matter how good you are, no matter how long you've been in the market, it does not matter. So, wrapping things up, why your business isn't getting enough customers, by itself, it's not just we need to improve our marketing. And I would even argue there's a number of business strategies that if you feel that way, there's a number of business strategies that you should work on before spending more money on marketing or advertising. Otherwise, think about it this way. If you go out and you buy more ads, if you spend more money, if you do more marketing, blah, 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 but you've got all these strategies that are broken, you're just creating more of an expensive problem, and you're not providing any solution to it that's going to grow the business. So we want to take a look at growth holistically at one business strategy at a time, get improvements in myopic ways. That's what we talk about in our culture of coaching, is all about strategy, about improvements in 3% over here and 5% over here, 8% over here, and so on. And just like compound interest, when you take multiple strategies and you stack them together, you got one strategy, then another, then another, then another. Now you have what we call profit acceleration. That's how you grow the bottom line, which at the end of the day, that's what you should be focused on more than anything, is improving your profitability. Think about where you are. You likely one day you're going to want to sell the business. You're going to want to pass the business down as a family business to your kids or your grandkids. A number of different things, but you're going to get to a point one day and you run risk of the business not being profitable enough to do what it is that you've dreamed about doing with that business. Or that business may be your retirement account. That could be your 401k. And you get to the point with the business broker to have it evaluated, and it's just not worth what you thought because of your blood, your sweat, your tears, which unfortunately, that does not equal dollars and cents. So there you go. Today, you can work on these things that we discussed. And even if it's just rough for the moment, if you spend some time and you're diligent about working through these problems right here, you will improve in this area your ability to have more customers without going out and spending more money in marketing or advertising alone. All right? Until next time, take care. Hey, join me on the next episode of Business Growth Blueprint, where we're going to talk about the milkshake lie, how your mindset is driving your business results. Join me.
Access more